Shalom and welcome to TBN Israel, the podcast. I'm here with the one and only Mati Shoshani.
Shalom Yair.
And the second and only Tomer Zmora.
Hello.
The not Houthi guy. And we are here to talk about everything Iran. They are experiencing some biblical stuff going on there.
Biblical scale troubles.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. From droughts to rivers evaporating to electricity problems, power outages, random explosions of gas stuff and other facilities.
Or are they?
Or
are they random?
Mossad operations. I don't know. But this is what's happening in Iran. And we're going to break down how is the Ayatollah regime reacting after the 12-day war against Israel. So Israel have launched multiple aerial strikes and basically achieved air superiority above the skies in Iran, striking the nuclear facilities with the help of the Americans' B-2 bombers, and also destroying about, 30 to 50% of the ground-to-ground rocket launchers that Iran used to launch attacks against Israel.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'll jump to the end of what we're asking here as a question. The question always is, there was an expectation that Iran would come to the negotiation table in a more cooperative manner than in the past and say, okay, like 12 days, you've dominated our airspace, you destroyed much of our leadership or eliminated much of our leadership. We're willing to have this conversation now. And instead, radio silence. Yeah. There was a little of nonsense kind of negotiations.
There was a little bit of
empty
when
threats.
We say death to Israel, death to America, we do not mean death like you guys in the West think what death
Philosophical
is.
death.
Yeah, it's not real death to you guys. I mean, there was a little bit of that random statements on international media.
But and then a week later or 2 weeks later, they were making threats.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll attack Israel, we'll retaliate. They would name, they love these very floral names. Death from above, vengeance of, all these B-rated movie names.
And they just released the footage of their aerial strikes from the war that they called True Promise, I think, Tomer, right? That's how they called the campaign against Israel.
2.
Yeah, True Promise 2. So they released some high-quality footage of their underground rocket launching facilities, drone facilities.
I think the guy that's naming all their projects has an obsession with 1990s action films.
Listen,
he just copies the name into Parsi and hopes no one pays attention.
I think that there is a monopoly of this group of guys sitting in a room and thinking of names for operations, for wars, and selling them to all the countries around the world. What was the name for the B-2 bombers attacks against Iran?
Midnight
Hammer.
Midnight Hammer.
Midnight Hammer.
That's Trump listening to old good rock and roll.
Late
1980s, 80s metal album name.
Exactly.
With a saxophone in the background.
Yeah. So Iran was attacked. Iran's economy is severely harmed. The people are suffering. It's hot. There's no water. The government is closing its offices in trying to save on electricity and on the cost of air conditioning in the country. It's that bad. And yet, the Iranian regime and the Ayatollahs are coming out and making statements that they will rebuild, that they will invest now more than ever in anti-rocket defensive systems, in ground-to-ground rocket attack systems, and they will carry out more attacks, more offensives against Israel and against anybody else who is threatening the Iranian regime.
So the Iranian government has a really big problem. And the problem is they're a dictatorial, religious, fundamentalist organization. And because of that, they can never reach a real conversation about what are we really doing with our money.
Exactly.
That's the problem. And it's almost this joke. It's who would imagine, I say this cynically, of course, who would imagine if you spend all your resources for decades on one, controlling your people with a iron fist, two, exporting terrorism to the world, and not taking care of infrastructure, education, limiting rights, destroying any kind of financial initiative in the country, causing anyone who has any business connections internationally to flee, bringing on the country decades of economic sanctions, who could imagine that the result of all of those actions would be financial isolation, deteriorating infrastructure, problems with your electrical and water grid, enemies who are happy to attack you, neighbors who can't wait for you to show weakness, and a population that doesn't cooperate with the government.
Yeah.
I say that jokingly because obviously that is the result. When what all you do is just destroy things. Think about this. Iran, for decades, they were a country that they have one of the biggest reserves of natural oil in the world. They were a country that had to import gasoline for their cars because when the revolution came, they decided that all the educated people, of course, are the enemy. This is a trend in
dictatorial,
socialist and then let's call it just extremist movements, where anyone with a pair of glasses and a degree is the enemy of the state. Suddenly, you don't know how to run your refineries. You have no gasoline in a country that sits on that a very substantial amount of the world reserve of oil. One example. The same goes for electrical grid, to water supplies. If you're spending all your money on destruction and preserving power, of course, your economy is going to suffer. And for them, and this is, I think, one of the fallacies of the way we look at the West, look at these regimes, we looked at them, we said, look, we've shown you the wrongfulness of your ways. Now we expected what? Repentance. Of course, the Iranians have been shown that they're weaker, that we have the upper hand. Clearly, the next step is, we're sorry, guys. We were wrong about this whole Islamic jihad thing.
Yeah, let's talk. Let's
be friends.
Let's be friends.
We're gonna publicly go back on our. No, that's not who
they double down.
Yeah.
They double down. Yeah,
because if the minute they admit that weakness, what happens? The people rise up against
the population from within rise up. Yeah,
exactly. So they're in a very problematic place with these kind of things, where they can't just say we were wrong. They can't admit to the fact that they made a big mistake in their doctrines. So what do they have to do? More of the same.
Yeah.
More of the
destruction,
same.
More terror, more investment in money. And what they have been doing, because the major reason of the success of Israel in the 12-day war against Iran was the intelligence factor, the fact that we were able to infiltrate their high-level meetings in the military of the IRGC. So what they did just now is to replace the whole leadership of the people that are making the military decisions in Iran. Everybody, because they don't trust anybody that was part of the former war.
Yeah.
So that's one step. And then another step now is that they are cracking down against the population, meaning arrests, executions, and threats against anybody who opposes the regime.
Yeah.
So this is the second part. And the third part is trying to cooperate with countries like China and other countries, North Korea, to get advanced weapons, to try and see if they can get weapons that will be able to be a match for the Israeli Air Force aircrafts.
Absolutely not. Because it's not about the technology alone, it's about the people operating it. And you only see true creativity in operating weapon systems and intelligence when people have freedom and not when they're under oppression. That's the reality there. And I want to say something else also. These governments, and Iran is not an exception to it, countries that are not able to look forward into their own future, they can't make the right decisions on time. And these are things where, they say, well, there's water shortage. And if you're a low-level leader, you say, well, it's because we've had famine for multiple years, and there's a global trend of less water in these arid areas, which is an absolute fact.
It's not my fault.
No, and they say, well, this is the reason. So therefore, we don't have water. It's a 100-year trend. It didn't start recently. It's been happening for decades.
They digged and didn't keep, and they used the water wrong and didn't let the water resources to
replenish.
Yeah,
but the same thing happened also in Iraq. And again, if you go into these you can go down these rabbit holes of thought. There's this whole trend of thinking about resources as a trigger for geopolitical shifts. Famine being the trigger for the Arab Spring and stuff like that. There's a lot of merit to that thought process, but in this case, look, Iraq experienced this. They experienced decades of drought and diminishing amounts of rainfall that caused the Euphrates, the river systems in the country, and these are delta countries. They're countries that rely on natural river economies. They relied on them, and they slowly dried out. And then the geopolitical instability made it even worse. You have to be able to think forward. Israel is, we're often talked about as this, like, this paragon of economic innovation and financial innovation and water innovation too. And when we've spent a lot of time with these people, you interview these people, they knew what was happening 30 years in advance.
But they did something about it.
Yeah, they did something. That's the only difference.
That's the difference.
All these trends are known to the world. There's the water trends are known. This isn't a conversation, by the way, about global warming. These things happen unrelated.
Mati, every day he gets excited and then he starts kicking the microphone. That's the new thing.
Yeah.
So can you take us through the stuff that's really happening on the ground now? Like what Iran is and how the life in Iran is.
But let's layer this conversation. First of all, unrelated to this 12-day campaign and unrelated to the sanctions, Iran is an economy that has been growing underneath a radical Islamic government.
True.
Just by the foundation of that, and we're talking an entire lifetime of that. This is before our lifetime. Iran has been underneath that Islamic jihadist radical government. What does that government do? It prevents education of women. It prevents women's rights. So you're losing much of your workforce. You're losing much of the educational system, its ability to bring people into high productive jobs. You lose that. You shut down a lot of the tech sector in the country. The Iranians were a highly educated population, now much less. Then you create a huge sector of government-dependent jobs. Because you're a dictatorship, because you can't allow freedoms, because you can't allow personal and private sector innovation, you clamp down on all of that. All the brightest and the best leave, and they now own businesses in LA and other places, and in downtown Jerusalem, by the way. A lot of these people, they leave the country, and they never come back, and they leave with the funds that they had. Then, on top of that, you have multiple generations of people who don't receive a proper education or business opportunities or economic opportunities. And your economy becomes an economy of cheap labor, of lack of innovation, lack of incorporation of new technological solutions that relies on cheaper and cheaper labor without the ability to generate anything. And then what happens? You rely on natural resources. Iran had oil, which in itself is a problem because it causes a lot of unhealthy behavior patterns in many countries that can't plan long into the future. All of that is before they even talked about Israel or the Great Set in America or the attack. Just that starting point, you're in a super problematic position, and it makes life very, very difficult in those countries. Then they didn't stop there. They said, let's take this already poor starting point and make things 10 times worse. We have an idea. Let's focus all our attention on bringing down Israel and the U.S.
I have an idea. Let's create the ring of fire around Israel. Let's spend billions of dollars
Tens of billions,
to create the biggest and the strongest terrorist organization called Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Come on, guys. Let's invest money in the Assad regime and let's have Iranian proxies there. Let's invest money in the Houthis. Guys, you heard of the Houthis? Yeah, let's invest money with them, bring them rockets, teach them how to use them, and they can launch attacks against Israel. And let's cooperate with Hamas, despite the fact of them being Sunnis and we are Shiites, meaning that in any other place around the Middle East, we would hate them because of their beliefs at a different sect of Islam. But if it goes together with Israel, let's unite and carry out an attack. And their plan was to eradicate the Jewish state by launching a multi-dimensional attack simultaneously from the Gaza Strip and Hezbollah with rockets from Yemen and then drones from Iran and from Iraq and then basically destroying Israel.
Yeah.
Which potentially that could have worked if they were coordinated and Hamas wouldn't jump the gun and launch the attacks before coordinating with the rest of the terrorists.
I don't know. I feel like it's impossible to really understand what would happen there.
Yeah.
I'd say that a lot of...
That was the plan.
Again, these are smart people. And they've spent a lot of money on creating this destruction. And I think that the problem here with this whole conversation is we're looking at the perspective. I think Toma's question is perfect. What is a person on the ground experiencing in Iran? So one, they were a country that had too many babies too fast back in the day. Then they had which is the pendulum swing of exactly that demographic problem. People look and they say, we're not bringing many large families into this world. Let's have smaller families because we can't afford to grow our kids in this. And then that creates an inverted demographic pyramid where you have problems sustaining the older generation. They're already there. Then on top of that, and that now things really get bad for them, think about a person who now lives in Tehran or in one of the big cities in Iran. they've been publicly humiliated on a national level, so morale is low. They had sanctions on them were at minimum in most sectors 10, 12 years. Yeah. In some of the areas, it's much more than that. Things that have to do with chip import, hardware, military hardware.
Tomer, why are you calling me? Oops. Okay, Tomer.
Tanks and maybe it's what Tomer's kid at home with an iPad or something. When you talk about tanks, airplanes, jets, even commercial airlines, sanctions on that since the 70s. Mm-hmm. So you have that. Then again, they're not trading actively with other countries. Mm-hmm. Then you talk about the loss of liberties that people experienced. And so they're afraid to demonstrate. They're afraid to speak openly. They're afraid to talk about politics at the business and the workplace. So it's a lot of these limitations and restrictions on life. And the people there hate the government. That's a reality. Everyone there is opposed to the government. Everyone, the vast majority of the population, writes against it. Many people try to flee the country because things are so bad in it. Mm-hmm. And then the government, to respond to that, uses extreme violence.
Just in the last year, the price of bread got up in 40%.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? It's a basic thing. And they're using real. That's
their currency. But it's like what the real is now. To buy $1, they need 82,000 real, right?
Yeah. It's in thousand.
That's the inflation levels of their currency.
Yeah, and the governments had to take, because of the crazy inflation that they have and the devaluation that their currency has experienced, which is, again, it's obvious that your currency loses value when you're not trading with other people and when you're having to use the black market to sell your own goods. So that's not a surprise. And then it gets worse. You know, it's this compounding effect. Now they're not selling. Their currency is worthless. They have a black market internally of trying to trade things. Life gets really, really difficult for the people there. The government has been hanging people publicly. The government has been, I don't like talking about this on air, they've been raping people that they arrest in demonstrations and releasing the videos online to humiliate them because they're so scared of their own population. That's what people on the ground are dealing with in Iran. Mm-hmm. We, by the way, get on a daily basis messages from Iranian viewers that say, we love Israel. We watch you guys. Constantly we're getting these messages. And I've met some of these people in person, as have you. So it's a people that dislikes their government, that have been hijacked by an evil dictatorial government. Mm-hmm. They deserve better than this.
But exactly. With that, there is, I don't know how to call that, but they got two attacks that coming from nature. Like they experiencing right now natural disaster in form of a heat wave and a drying out. I put you a picture on the script.
I saw that, of the rivers.
Of the rivers? Show me, let's see. Whoa. So that's like before and after.
But Tomer, so are we.
Yeah, but we managing.
We have a national water company that thinks 30 years into the future and controls its own budget. And most of the water we drink in Israel, and most of the water we use for irrigation in Israel, almost all of it comes from desalination plants today. Because 30 years ago, the government already knew, and this is when we were kids.
Yeah,
we already knew
grew up with a country
drought cycles are getting more extreme in the Middle East. Again, this has nothing to do with global warming.
Remember the commercial?
Yeah.
With drying out?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's way before that.
And khashamim, the one that you put in the water to save.
We are a country that didn't have water, and today our kids don't understand what
my kids don't understand.
I remember, that my mother would not let us do like baths. Yeah, we had to do only showers. It was kind of part of the law, and you weren't allowed to have grass in your backyard because it takes water and stuff like that.
One of my kids loves taking long showers, and he's singing in the bathroom, shampooing his hair. He has hair.
By the way, do you shampoo now?
I use men's soap. It's 4-in-1. 4-in-1 Okay. Shampoo, conditioner, body wash, and toothpaste.
Toothpaste is good.
Anyway, so, I mean, we suffer, and this is the point. Everyone in the Middle East is suffering from these same problems. But when you're a country that actually takes care of its people and thinks into the future, you're able to cross these crisis moments. Mm-hmm. And when you're not, this is what it looks like. It looks like the capital of Iran is warning the people, look, guys, stop drinking so much water. We don't have any more. We're going to run out. Like that. Exactly. That's a level.
They changed the week to 4 days work because people cannot stand. So they sending people
Out of the cities.
Out of the cities, because the city...
Go on vacation somewhere else in the mountains because we can't cool the city. No air conditioner, no running water, no electricity much of the time. And again, it's
a bad cycle because now the economy is suffering because the system is working only 4 days and not 5 days or 6 days a week.
Yeah, but the economy was already suffering. On every possible metric, they're a country with a population 10 times our size. Our GDP as a nation is higher than theirs. I mean, I'm not talking per capita. Our GDP as a country, Israel brings in...
Really?
Yeah.
More than Iran, even though they have almost 100 million people?
Yeah, our GDP is higher. Our GDP is higher. And also, if you look at what we create as a society, this isn't to like compare the people. This is the governments. One incentivizes growth and innovation. The other one destroys any type of innovation and initiative on the private sector.
Yeah.
And that's a result of it after decades of this.
Only if you're an atomic scientist. Only then.
No, but then
then they have a short lifespan.
I was going to say there's a side effect where it dramatically shortens your lifespan.
So, miraculously, you just explode.
Anyway, but to our point, and we started with this question of why are they doing this? And instead of saying, look, let's like remove the sanctions, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, let's do, let's change the situation. What are they doing? They're buying weapon systems from the Chinese, surface-to-air missiles. They're buying drone systems from the Chinese because the Russians ones stopped working for them. Sorry. That's the reality here. Then they're doubling down on threats against Israel, threats against the U.S. and whatnot. And you look at the situation and say, are you guys madmen? Like, did you not see what happened last time we went to war against each other?
Exactly.
And the answer is yes, but they choose the path of violence because they refuse to be the leaders that their people actually need.
And they are terrified of their own population, so they cannot show any kind of weakness. This is something that people do not understand about the Middle East. If you show weakness towards your own people and you are a dictator, you will not remain in power. That's what it is. That's what Hamas is doing. That's what Hezbollah is doing with the threats against Israel and against Lebanon now. That's what the Houthis are doing, and that is what Iran is doing. You see the repetitive situation here? It's all about control of the population of your own country first, and then carrying out attacks against Israel.
Absolutely.
That's the connection.
Yeah. So now things get worse for Iran. They had the war. They have more sanctions. Now both European countries,
yes, good,
the JCPOA, and the U.S. are saying, look, you guys you're insane. Like, we clearly told you we're not going to allow you to go back to your nuclear program. And if very quickly you don't come back to the negotiation table, it's all the sanctions all at once.
Exactly.
And it was said to them in such a clear way. In fact, many of the European countries that were part of let's call it the treaties that supervised the Iranian program in the past, they're stronger and more hawkish than the Americans are on this topic.
Exactly. The International Atomic Energy Agency and the watchdog of the nuclear program of Iran, they are really, really on the point of making sure that Iran does not have nuclear weapons.
When is it? Is it late in September? There's a snapback. I think it's the end of September. There's automatic snapback on sanctions on them. This is from the European countries, and I believe the U.S. is also part of this treaty. No, they withdrew under Trump. Sorry,
Trump put the most higher sanction that can be right now on Tehran.
So things are just going to get worse for them. And this is a country, again, it's an oil-rich country with an educated population that is looking at, and I don't say this lightly, we're talking bankruptcy levels of economic sanctions. Very, very extreme sanctions. The U.S. and the international community, they know exactly how the Iranians are circumventing them now. They have no problem stopping it, but they don't want to. They were trying to incentivize them to come back into a treaty that incentivizes their economy, not stops their economy. And yet Iran stubbornly, persistently says, no, we continue to do the same thing. We'll threaten Israel. We'll threaten the U.S. They're trying to carry out terrorism attacks, by the way, against Israeli targets around the world. They're not really stopping with it. And that's the reality we're dealing with.
Well, they need a win. And they understand that by attacking Israel directly, Israel will retaliate. But if they attack synagogues, diplomatic centers of Jews, of Israelis in Europe, in the United States, then they can maybe get away with blaming a rogue lone wolf attack or something like that. That's kind of their idea. But Mati, do you think that after the Ayatollah regime, like Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, he's like an old guy already.
Yeah.
You think that after he passes away, will there be a successor that will be able to maintain the Ayatollahs in Iran?
For a season, yeah.
Yeah? You think?
Because you look at these dictatorships. I'm trying to think through models of other countries. One, Iran is not one homogenous population. It's got a mixture of like ethnicities in it.
True.
And then many of these countries, because the nature of a dictatorship is to destroy any kind of opposition, you never have a replacement for the government that's ready to come, which is a big problem. Because when the government falls, and they ultimately do fall, and the economies fail, and they ultimately always do fail, who's going to come and pick up the pieces? No one. And then what happens? Faction fighting. And
So there's a civil war for
Yeah.
many years, and it's not good for anybody.
And then things get even worse. Yemen's an example of that. Iraq is an even worse example.
Syria,
Syria.
we're seeing that also.
Syria, I think we're on the brink of seeing like the
The next stage of
exactly.
the civil war that it didn't really stop.
yeah, and then Iran has in it, it's a Shia Muslim country, but they're not all Persian ethnically speaking. They have Sunnis, they have Baluchis, they have other minorities that are substantial percentages of their population. They even have Kurds in the country.
Yeah.
So it's these large percentages. Each one of them is opposed to the government and has been oppressed by the government for decades. So it's this challenge of what happens in the day after when all you've done is oppress any kind of opposition,
Exactly.
and there is no leadership that is in the current government. So one, I think they can hold on to power longer than we expect, and we've seen them do so.
Yeah.
The second thing is things are already bad for this country, and to rebuild is much more complicated and expensive than it is to destroy. They've done a wonderful job of destroying their country, a wonderful, amazing work.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 on destruction
Exactly.
and lack of opportunity. And then rebuilding is all the harder because you've, one, taken away education from the people. You've taken away the human infrastructure that is required for economies. And this happens around the world. When countries go into conflict and fall into the hands of dictators, the higher levels of society, let's call it, so the affluent, the educated, the people that are that take entrepreneurial approach to economy, those people are the first to leave and the last to come back. And what you end up with is a population that's depleted of international connections, of trade, of the ability to education, to create the ability to create businesses, of people that think outside of the box. And then you're weaker to begin with and have a much harder time starting again.
Yeah, Mati, but on the good side of this, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, we are hearing of a revival going on in Iran.
Yeah.
It's really nice to hear that despite all the hardship, God is working in people's heart.
I've heard this, yeah.
So I heard it from many Iranians that are in the United States and are preaching in Persian to the people of Iran through satellite, through the internet, through means that surpass the government's censorship of the gospel in Iran.
Yeah.
And that's encouraging that, God finds a way to the people's heart despite everything that's going on in that
agree.
country. But,
Well, possibly in spite of it.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's probably the hardship and the disillusionment with the government that pushes people to look for an alternative faith. That's usually the case, especially in Muslim-controlled countries. But look, it's a complicated situation. And you look at these kind of things, and you could walk away from an hour-long discussion on this topic feeling depleted and depressed.
Exactly.
But there's another way to look at this and say, like, look, one, the people of Iran deserve better than this. They deserve a government that cares for them and takes care of them and does better on every possible metric. Two, things are probably going to get considerably worse before they get better for the people of Iran. And there's just no way around it because their government doesn't have the virtue that is required to rebuild. They're not that kind of leadership.
They don't care.
They don't care, and they're not concerned with it.
They're putting a lot of effort in the military. They still threatening. They still trying to buy more arms. They try now to get a nuclear weapon by buying that.
Yeah.
Not in.
Yeah.
But look, it's worse than that. A lot of these countries, we imagine them to be this, this like cohesive society that's like fighting together in the same direction.
It's not.
They suffer from terrible corruption in these countries.
Yeah.
Terrible, terrible corruption. And part of the reason, by the way, that the Israeli Air Force, and again, this gets a little into the details, part of the reason we were so successful in shooting down so many of their rockets and ballistic missiles, both the Russian ones, their air defense, and the ballistic missiles they launched, is because they lie to themselves about what their weapon systems are able to do. Yeah. And they sell themselves faulty weapon systems, claiming things that are not possible. This exists in in the Iranian economy. It exists in the Russian ecosystem, where they sold weapon systems because the government contractors were corrupt. We're selling the government systems
bad systems
that don't work in the way they were advertised, with much lower
success rates.
I mean, and by much I mean they're 20% successful when they were supposed to be 90% successful. That level of so much so, and the Iranians were using that. So it's like corruption breeds corruption, which breeds weakness and mediocrity in society, and that's where you are. And
exactly.
You have to, and then I'd say, so where do you find a positive method? Only in peoples that are able to abandon the belief system and the cultural system that existed and say, we take away this, we relinquish what this represents, and we want to be different people. And sometimes you have to abandon the religion system or the faith system to be able to do that. Look at post-World War II, Germany, or West Germany at least. Look at post-World War II, Japan. A public abandonment of the values that brought them to the previous point, and a shift of the value system and the belief system, and going for something completely different.
Yeah, definitely, guys. And this is a spiritual war. So if you want to pray for something, I would encourage you to pray. And this is very hard also for me, to pray for the enemies of Israel in this war. But not to pray for them to succeed in hitting us. Pray for them to have a change of heart. That instead of sending rockets towards Israel, start loving on Israel and the Jewish people. God can make that happen. God can change their hearts. So I think that will be like a prayer for the region, and that will make the situation for the Iranian people better and for everybody in this region if we can have a good relationship instead of just wars all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
And Mati, would you mind telling our viewers, if they want to sponsor one of our shows and partner with us, how can they do that?
Yeah. So one we've worked with a lot of people to help them work with our audience to promote ideas, concepts, profits, etc. And we have a website, a very effective one. Where's the domain? It's called Israel-ad.com. And if you want to join us and be a partner of the show, you can go to that. Do we have that? We do have the address on the screen.
Yeah.
Israel-ad.com is the way to do it. Reach out to us. We have a team of dedicated people that they know their numbers and they know how to reach people. It's a really good way to reach a very substantial audience that we have on this show. And help us grow.
Yeah,
that's also a good thing.
That's one of the ways. Like we grow and we fund our operations with donations. So thank you so much, guys. And from partnerships and from the views, the people subscribing. That's how we operate and keep doing. And our goal is to do more, always more. Listen, Israel is under attack and the world is spreading lies. And our enemies are investing huge amounts of money in sharing lies about what's happening in Israel. We are battling that with sharing the truth. We just now launched a campaign called Stand With Israel. If you want to be part of it, go to tbn.org/standwithisrael. You can hit the donate button and help us. Everything that we do is to create more content, more stuff about what's happening in Israel so that you'll know how to pray.
Did we ask people to subscribe?
Today? I don't think so. But Tomer, you forgot, huh?
Tomer, shame on you, Tomer. I feel like we've been going for a long time.
Without asking people to subscribe.
Because it was so interesting. So people should subscribe.
Maybe Tomer, you can tell the people to subscribe. Come on.
You should. So click this subscribe button. Only 50% of our viewers actually subscribe us, and we need it to keep growing and keep bringing you the truth about what's happening in Israel. So just click this small subscribe button.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.
Well, guys, if you have any questions, please leave a comment. Let us know what topics you want us to dig deeper into in our podcasts in the future. We would love to hear. What videos do you think we should create to explain the situation on the ground? If it's more videos regarding the situation in Gaza, is there a starvation in the Gaza Strip? Who are the Iranian people? What is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? The history, maybe, of the Gaza Strip. I like to see Mati doing an explainer about the history of the Gaza Strip and how did it become this strip of land that is now being under war and in the news everywhere. Okay, so let us know what you want. And I think that's it for today.
I have a question for you, Yair. Where do you think we're going to go with the Iranians? What's going to happen next?
Round 2.
Well, I think that in the near future, the Iranians are gonna attempt to launch attacks, terrorist attacks against Israeli synagogues, against Israeli Jewish centers around the world, if it's in South America, North America, Europe, and other places, that's for sure. So we need to watch out for attacks outside of Israel. I think that the Iranians are now at a stage of rebuilding, so they're going to invest money again in rockets, in the nuclear facility. We should be aware of them trying to get one nuclear bomb to the hands of a terrorist organization. I'm projecting that they will try to do that in Syria, because I think that that's the most destabilized country that is bordering Israel at this moment. And I think that the IDF and the Mossad will be working very, very closely with the new council that was appointed in Iran. And I'm sure and hopeful that we already have, spies within this new council that was appointed.
Do you see an agreement happening anytime soon?
Between Israel and Iran?
Or the US and Iran?
No. Not while the Ayatollahs are in power.
I feel the same way. It's very depressing, but I feel like if they had the opportunity and it came and it went, and we're just going to see more of the same, which is very sad. Very sad for the people of Iran. Exactly. They deserve better than this, and they deserve a brighter future than what their current regime allows for.
Well, for sure. Well, Mati,
on that high note,
I'm starving, and I think that we have food coming up. So, guys, have a great afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time it is for you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of TBN Israel, the podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, Mati, the one and only. Thank you, Tomer.
Nice.
And thank you to our team downstairs.
Yeah.
Who's downstairs now?
We have Micah,
Yigal,
Yigal, Sam?
Is Sam downstairs? Tell us in the headset.
Rachel. And we have a bunch of people here. And we have some viewers coming to see us very soon. And guys, when you're in Jerusalem, make sure to send us a message. Let us know you're here. Come be with us in the podcast live in the audience. We'll ask you some questions. It's going to be fun.
Amen to that.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org.